Today, we're going on a pretty wild journey into your own head. We're going to take a look at the principles of the 3D mind to finally understand the operating system that runs everything, and more importantly, how you can actually start to rewrite some of that old code.
So let me ask you something. You ever have that feeling where you're just stuck on repeat? Like you overreact to something tiny and you know it's an overreaction, or you find yourself procrastinating on that one thing yet again. It's that feeling of being trapped in a pattern you know isn't good for you, but you just can't seem to break out of it.
Well, here's the big idea we're digging into. What if that's not a personality flaw? What if you're not lazy or weak-willed? What if it's just the predictable, logical outcome of your brain running on some really, really ancient survival software? To really get that, we need to go way, way back. I'm talking hundreds of millions of years. See, your brain wasn't designed top down like a piece of tech. It was built up over eons, layer by layer, with the newest, most advanced stuff just kind of piled on top of some very old, very primitive foundations. I mean, think about it. It all started with just a single cell that could react to light. Then you get a sea anemone with a simple nerve net for basic reflexes. Touch something bad, pull away. Then comes a huge leap. The tube. Basically a gut that needs a tiny brain to make one critical call. Is this thing I'm about to eat good or bad? And finally, you get the reptile brain, which adds movement, competition, and all those basic drives. And here's the kicker. All of that old hardware is still in there. It's still running inside your head right now. And that ancient hardware, it's pretty much obsessed with four things. We call them the 4 Fs. Feeding, fighting, fleeing, and, well, procreating. These four primal drives are hardwired into the deepest, oldest part of you, and they still have a massive say in your modern-day behavior, usually without you even noticing. Okay, so if that old reptile brain is the foundation, what did evolution build on top of it? Well, that brings us to the cortex, the wrinkly gray stuff on the outside. And this is where things get really interesting, because it sets up a kind of conflict inside your head, a conflict that's best described as a jelly sandwich. Yep, you heard that right. To really understand how the different parts of your cortex work together, or more often against each other, we're going to use this great little metaphor. Don't think of it as one thing. Think of it as a giant jelly sandwich. So here's how it works. This sandwich basically represents two completely different systems. The inner piece of bread, that's your reactive layer. Think of it like a super sensitive burglar alarm. It's got very focused connections, and the second it senses a threat, it goes off, triggering that old reptile brain and the 4 Fs. It's stuck in the past, and it runs on that go-go-go chemical dopamine. But the outer slice of bread, that's your creative adaptive layer. This isn't an alarm, it's a massive resource library. It has these wide, sprawling connections to access all your complex memories and skills. It lives in the present moment, and it runs on serotonin, the chemical that gives you that feeling of flow. So what happens when that burglar alarm goes haywire? What happens when it gets triggered over and over and over again? Well, that leads to something I'm sure we've all felt, being trapped in a stress loop. It's that awful state where the alarm gets stuck in the on position and just won't turn off. It's a chain reaction, right? It starts with a trigger. Maybe you see the curtain before you have to give a speech. Instantly, bam, the alarm in your reactive layer fires, waking up the reptile brain. Your body gets flooded with adrenaline for a quick burst of energy, and also cortisol. Now, this is the most important part. Cortisol is supposed to be the reset button. It's supposed to tell the system, okay, crisis over, stand down. But when you're stressed all the time, the receptors for cortisol just get worn out. They stop listening. The reset fails. The alarm stays on. And the end result of that broken loop is a real biological state called learned helplessness. Your system is just always on, burning through all your dopamine and serotonin. You feel totally exhausted, completely stuck, and like you have zero choices. Because biologically speaking, you don't. The part of your brain that accesses that huge resource library, the creative outer bread of the sandwich, is basically offline. You're just spinning your wheels. Okay, that sounds pretty bleak, I know. If we're biologically designed to get stuck like this, how in the world do we get out? Well, the answer isn't about more willpower. It's about understanding how to actively rewire the map itself. And to do that, we need another brilliant model, the Jello model. To get how we can change these automatic pathways, we first have to understand how they got there. So I want you to picture your brain's memory system as a big, flat sheet of Jello, and there's a little ball rolling across the top of it. Now, here's the key.
When you have a really emotional experience, it could be intense fear, massive excitement, whatever. That emotion is like taking a blowtorch to the jello. It warms it up, makes it soft and impressionable. So when that ball rolls across, it doesn't just skim the surface. It carves a deep, permanent groove. And that groove, that becomes your brain's new default pathway. It's the automatic reaction. So the 3D mind process cleverly hijacks this exact system to create change. First, you briefly and safely re-experience that original feeling, just enough to warm the jello. Then, while the brain is soft and ready to change, you introduce something new, a powerful, positive resource. It could be as simple as remembering the feeling of success when you finally learned to tie your shoes as a kid. You then link that feeling of competence to the original trigger. What this does is it carves a new groove. It messes up the old program and gives your brain more options than just hitting the panic button. And this all leads to the most incredible payoff, the whole point of understanding this stuff. It's the realization that you are not your wiring, your automatic reactions, those deep grooves, your sense of self. None of it is permanent. You can actually live with choice. Let's try one last metaphor. Imagine your brain's cortex is a giant grid of 30 billion Christmas lights. Your identity, who you think you are from one moment to the next, isn't some central command center. It's just the pattern of lights that happens to be lit up right now. So when you do this work, when you consciously create a new pathway, you're not just tweaking a bad habit. You are fundamentally changing which of those Christmas lights turn on in response to the world. You are, quite literally, lighting up a whole new pattern, a new version of you. So at the end of the day, it's about this. Once you understand the machine, you can stop being run by the machine. You can go from being a passenger stuck on autopilot to being the one in the cockpit, consciously choosing where to go. Which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. If you weren't on autopilot, who would you choose to be?